What's going on, guys? Your boy Amazing here, back with another video. And in today's video, guys, we're here with a Duet and Abyss reaction video going over Duet and Abyss should have been great. Now, shout out to Braxphone here for dropping the video here, guys. I'm honestly curious to hear what Brax has to say on the topic of Duet and Abyss and whether or not, you know, the release of the game was really the greatest. You know, I know a lot of sentiment in the community is that the game's been kind of dry and we haven't really gotten updates. So I'm honestly curious to hear what someone like Braxphone has to say about the game. And yeah, we'll just kind of, you know, watch this video together, react, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on things that he mentions in the video. And yeah, let's just see what it's all about. Again, if you guys enjoy videos like this, be sure to like the video. I will also link Braxphone's video in the description as well. But let's hop in and let's...
If you've been on twitter.com at any point over the past 7 years, you're probably owed a lot of emotional damages. As a creator, I use it to connect with my audience, but I've gotta say, consuming content of any sort through Twitter has gotta be one of the top 5 worst experiences a human can have.
Definitely.
Right behind playing a new Call of Duty. No amount of bleaching your eyes can save you from the absolute codswallop of takes you'll see on that site. Regardless of what people say, though, 2025 has been an absolutely wild year for new games. Partly because so many amazing games have released, like Expedition 33 and Silksong, but also because so many live service games had their greatest updates yet, like Wuthering Waves 2.x, which absolutely crushed expectations. But alongside the greater game releases, there have also been some more controversial releases. I'm not going to cover everything since I mostly do brain rot on this channel, but needless to say, people have had problems with seemingly every patch of every live service gacha, the new release of Star Resonance and Tower of Fantasy's Warp Server, and of course, the subject of this video, Duet Night Abyss.
And after thousands of hours in Warframe and now 200 hours in Duet Night Abyss,
200
I
hours
want
on
to share
gaming,
an
honest
bad,
perspective on the game, positives and negatives. And full transparency, I love Duet Night Abyss. It's probably my favorite anime game release of 2025. It's been an absolute blast to play, but it's definitely not perfect, and in this video I'm going to try and communicate what I think has happened. And I say try because despite me outlining everything in almost every video I make like this, there's always people who comment things that make me think I spoke Braille for the entire video.
That's fair,
so strap on for a more serious video. With that said, my name is Braxophone, but you can call me Brax, and let's talk about Duet Night Abyss right after I read you this ad.
Sponsorship. I did see Raid Shadow Legends was the sponsor of the video, so let me just go to right at the end here. Shout out to the
First games to announce that they are removing their game's gacha, which was well received by almost everybody. But some community figures early on expressed their skepticism about whether or not the game would be good. As you may know, removing the gacha from a game doesn't instantly make it good, especially if the systems that were built around the gacha system aren't reworked. This includes anything that's monetized by the company based on building the characters, like a stamina system, or anything that gives you a premium currency such as chests, FOMO events, endgame modes, and more. Well, luckily, Duet Night Abyss actually has done a fairly good job of that, in my personal opinion.
No, I completely agree with that. I think Duet Night Abyss, for the systems that they've taken from gacha and converted them now into more live service, you know, Warframe style like gameplay, I think they actually have done really good with that. I mean, most of the rewards, I think there's like a few things again like that, you know, people might have as criticism as like, you know, maybe the weekly bosses and stuff, like some of the weekly content is locked behind, like, you know, you having to wait the week. But I think again, that's like just some of these things that just kind of happen with live service games, you know, in general, right, guys? So yeah, I mean, like for sure those stamina systems are all gone, so Duet and Abyss has already done that as a W. But yeah, I mean, again, I guess that is fair. Like, even if you do remove gacha from a game, it doesn't just magically make the game good. You do have to follow up on other things that would, you know, obviously make the game better and kind of draw away from those like gacha, you know, practices and all that. So all right, yeah, no, that's fair.
Instead of just giving everything for free, you still have to play the game to earn the characters. All characters and weapons are obtained through collecting what's called secret letters. They're gained over time via enemy drops, login rewards, and more. Overall, they're not very hard to get. And in my opinion, this system is actually friendlier than Warframe's relic system. Since the relics in Warframe have far more randomness to the drops you actually get and to the relics that you actually get. And it can take longer to farm something in Warframe than Duet Night Abyss.
One thing I will say that Warframe has better than Duet and Abyss in that section of like secret letter clues or like secret letters versus like void relics. I think the void relic system from Warframe is very much more like co-op friendly, right? Because you're actually trying to play with other players where you're trying to have, you know, everyone run a rad share of a certain relic so you guys all get the same gold drop, right? Whereas in Duet and Abyss, if you play co-op on a rad share or like an equivalent, like a secret letter clue like thing, you're not gonna actually get the same reward at the end because each person's using getting their own reward from their own secret letter. So I think maybe if they wanna adopt the actual system of void relics from Warframe, they could definitely do that to maybe incentivize more co-op in the game. But that's just like something that I would say that I think the void relic system has a little bit over secret letter system in Duet and Abyss.
In Duet Night Abyss, once you have the secret letter clues, you can choose something to target that you want to farm for. The stages in Duet Night Abyss are also very easy and get easier the more built your characters are. They're also co-opable, which means infinite grindable fun before, during, and after you hit the club. However, despite everything in Duet Night Abyss being collectible and players being satisfied with the time spent to unlock something, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are quite a few things for Duet Night Abyss to improve on for the player experience, and one of the more controversial ones is combat, which in my personal opinion, as a Warframe veteran, I feel like it's actually fine, but if we look at the greater gaming industry, it's just fine. When compared with Warframe, a conceptually similar game, DNA falls short. Warframe has 4 core frame abilities, and even more from other systems, while Duet Night Abyss only has 2 core abilities per character, plus 1 from Genie Mod. This fact probably stems from the game being made for mobile, to try and keep things simple.
100%. I think the reason why Duet Night Abyss doesn't have more than like 2 abilities per character is definitely because it's not a it is a mobile game, unlike Warframe, which is not a mobile game, right? So it definitely is one of those things where like because the game was gonna be made for also mobile players, they didn't want it to be too complicated. Again, too complications, like if there's too much like complicated like, you know, ways to use abilities, guys, on like mobile, it is a little bit harder to, you know, get an audience that will adopt all the like, you know, systems in the game, and it's a little bit just harder in general on mobile. There's a lot less like space for you to press buttons, so I can definitely see that as being something for sure that is an issue that Duet Night Abyss has. And you know, because of that, we only have 2 abilities, we only have 2 weapons, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess that's definitely like a fair criticism, but again, it's because that this is also a mobile game at the end of the day too, right? Whereas Warframe is now getting on mobile, but originally it was a PC, you know, console experience.
But it really hurts the game on a fundamental level because it takes away from the identity and replayability of every single character. Not to mention, it copied many character kits straight out of Warframe,
that is true,
but did them a little bit worse. Oh, you like Valkyr? Try Fantasio. Oh, you like Mesa? Well, they didn't just take Mesa's kit, they also took her assets. You're a Hydroid main? Well, maybe...
I will say, Lyn in Duet Night Abyss has better ult than Mesa in the sense that you never have to... Like, I guess you will, obviously, like, you redo the ultimate again to get, like, the buff that she has. I forget exactly what it's called, like, the, yeah, it's, like, the shot buff, like, right? Pretty much you have, like, the little, like, thing, load on the bottom of your screen. I forget exactly what it's called. What's her skill for it, man? Let me see. Laceration, right? And then you get the buff, you know, from Laceration for the damage, and then I think it's, yeah, preload stacks. That's exactly what it is. So the preload stacks is the thing that I meant to, you know, mention right there. But, yeah, pretty much, guys, I think, like, Lyn Ultimate is just, like, better because it doesn't, like, you know, I think the way to put it is that it doesn't like lower the field of view in a sense, whereas like, you know, Mesa actually does, and you have to re-up the ultimate because of that. But again, preload stacks, I guess, you know, is the reason why you'd re-up it. But again, like, it's very minor things, and I don't feel like I need to like say a bunch of that.
If we compare the movement in this game to Warframe, it feels worse as well, and I don't think anyone was contesting that. But between copies of Warframe characters, the mobile UI, and the Genie Mon system, it's really hard to pinpoint what the target audience of this game actually is. And one of the biggest issues Duet Night Abyss has is exactly that. Who even is its competitor? And who is its target audience? It looked like it was trying to compete in the anime mobile space with Genshin, Wuthering Waves, Enfield, and more. But if you ask a gacha player if they like Duet Night Abyss, a lot of them are gonna say no, because a lot of people play gacha games for the convenience of spending as little time on a game as possible, something that I don't think I'll personally ever understand, but I respect the commitment. Duet Night Abyss requires a lot of time doing the same missions over and over using the same characters over and over with very little variation. The combat is not complex like Wuwa and does not have elemental reactions like Genshin. Instead of fighting 1 to 3 enemies, in Duet Night Abyss, you fight hundreds. So
yeah,
mechanics like those don't really work as well. Trying to compare Duet Night Abyss combat to Wuwa and ZZZ is like comparing a wet napkin to a hydrogen baby. The puzzles in DNA are often simple and the combat is floaty. I mean, you can literally fly through the air by shooting your gun. I've come to learn in my time covering the game that it's the complete opposite of what many gacha players want out of a game, and for
one thing I will say as like, I guess a counter argument in that sense is a lot of gacha players do just kind of want to like farm in a sense, where like if they have a stamina and they can refill stamina and just keep going, they will do that. You know what I mean? There is going to be the hardcore gacha players that are really dedicated to the grind, and I think those are probably the players that Duet and Abyss probably picked up. You know what I mean? Like, it's the players that kind of wanted that experience of being able to grind at no like FOMO, no like, you know, stamina, no cost or anything, and they can just grind the game. I feel like those are the gacha players that they have kept, right? Whereas like the gacha players that normally just log in for 15 minutes, you know, they get off the game, those are the types of people that unfortunately just don't mesh for the type of game Duet and Abyss is trying to be. And again, Duet and Abyss is trying to be in more so that looter shooter kind of genre, right? You're trying to farm a bunch of loot, level up your weapons, min-max your builds, you know, level up your characters, all the stuff like that to really make yourself feel strong. It's a power fantasy, right? That's what Warframe is too. It's a power fantasy at the end of the day.
For that reason, my audience in particular doesn't really vibe with it, which is fine because if I really cared about pleasing my audience, I'd probably still be making like Genshin Impact videos or something. Ultimately, Duet Night Abyss is about the characters, just like gacha games, but the characters aren't as interesting to play with due to their lack of abilities and the lack of complexity of combat. But personally, I think that's actually okay, because whether the developers knew it or not, the actual audience for Duet Night Abyss is Warframe and Western MMO-like players.
Exactly what I just said, guys. Exactly what I just said. So pretty much what the community that is going to be based on from Duet Night Abyss, at least post the honeymoon phase, because we've already gotten past that like 1 month period of people trying out the game to see if they like it or not. It's really going to be the people playing the First Ascendant in Warframe that just don't really have content in that game at their time and just want to, you know, dive into another looter shooter, you know, kind of experience. I feel like that is mainly what it is, or the dedicated gacha players like I mentioned, right? So, you know, that's
a lot of people are worried about Duet Night Abyss taking inspiration from Warframe, but remember, competition is always good for the consumer because 100%. It means both sides have to work harder to be better than the other. People keep starting wars over which games are better all the time, and I'm just over here like, wow, 2 cakes. But DNA's developmental identity crisis has definitely hurt it quite a bit.
The game was initially teased for the first time to be an anime mobile game with Souls-like and Code Vein vibes. And then when the beta actually released, it shared a lot of similarities to Genshin Impact with the characters' abilities, designs, the world, and the gameplay loop.
Another beta later, and they've added this system called Genimon with a catch gauge that looks exactly like Palworld. When it was first being developed, Duet Night Abyss's team didn't know what the game was actually supposed to be, which is why it's had its hand in so many cookie jars.
One thing I will say is the original trailer that they had back in 2023, it was definitely trying to be inspired by Warframe at the end of the day. Like even back then, you know what I mean? Because if you saw the trailer back then, they were doing bullet jump. They had Psyche in that trailer too, which is literally Titania from Warframe. So, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where I think this was supposed to be just anime Warframe, and the devs probably knew, you know, this is a market that they could probably hit, and they were like, why not try it? And, you know, obviously for you guys watching the video and for people that enjoyed Duet and Abyss, they've obviously succeeded, you know, in that sense, right, where they've gotten people like us that enjoy this type of content and this type of game. And yeah, I mean, you know, I think that was probably it though, really. Like it really was Warframe. I don't think it was necessarily Code Vein and the other things Brax mentioned there, but it definitely was Warframe. At least from my initial, you know, perspective of the game when I first saw it on, I think it was the trailer they had in Game Awards like in like 2023 or something like that, when they first revealed it. Like that was the, like, you know, first hit. I was like, okay, it's anime Warframe. That's fire, right?
Jars. But since all of the time given to it was split so many ways, Duet Night Abyss does a lot of things subpar compared to the other games. Because they pivoted so many times from so many different ideas, they weren't able to really min-max on the one concept or two concepts that they wanted to do exceptionally well. Okay. Another way to put it is this: if you spend a month trying to learn 10 instruments rather than just one, you may come out a more versatile player, and you might even be pretty decent at all 10 of the instruments, but you could never be as good as the player who spent the whole month focusing all of that time and effort into the one instrument. And who's gonna get the job at the end of the day? It's gonna be the guy who sounds better on the one spot they need filled. The person who learns 10 instruments is probably a good musician, but why would someone choose something that's just good over something great? Duet Night Abyss's systems were not exceptionally well executed from launch. Don't get me wrong, the game is very fun, and in my opinion, it's quite good, but many of its core gameplay systems still need a little bit of refinement. For example, the die system in Duet Night Abyss is a great concept that is executed in an unfriendly way for players.
Again, we've talked about this in feedback videos already, guys. Die system needs to be completely dropped and just allow us to have color palettes. Just make color palettes have, you know, the smoke color palette, the fire color palette, a more like oceanic color palette. Like, I don't know, like just pretty much different colors that they can do in like packs. They could just sell that, you know what I mean? Again, it's a monetization thing that I think if they really wanted you to be able to customize your character more, that would be one of the things for sure, from at least, you know, dropping the die system.
Players. Essentially, anytime you want to dye a skin, you need to pull on the gacha to get a currency that allows you to buy the colored dyes. Or you can just spend money buying them in the shop. But each dye is one-time use. If you look at Warframe's system, you can permanently purchase color palettes, but the actual dyeing costs nothing. You can change your colors whenever you want. If we look at the ranged weapon system in Duet Night Abyss, there's no aim down sights option, only
See, so these are things that I think like Brax is like saying about the game are just critiques of like the game as like it's just feedback that doesn't need to take, really. Like this, what I'm getting at from this video is this is more so a video of feedback, right? Because this is something, yes, like why is there not an aim down sight so I don't waste my ammo when I'm gliding through the air? 100%. I don't know why that's not a thing. You know what I mean? For sure. And then even the die system. Like, again, I even mentioned that as feedback as well in the feedback video I did, right? So, yeah, again, like these are things that for sure the devs need to address 100%. Like, I think, you know, especially if they want to keep their audience like that, especially for like the PC audience, right? For mobile, I understand why there's no separate ADS, right? Because, you know, like on mobile, you probably just want to press the button to shoot, you press the other button to melee, right? You don't want too much complex stuff. But for PC, the fact that that's not even a thing, like, you know,
shooting and aiming down sights are one and the same in the game, and that lack of a separate option was likely a compromise that was made for mobile, but makes the game feel a bit worse to play. If we look at multiplayer in the overworld, it's almost exclusively reserved to this one specific spot in town.
It really is right now hub areas, and then if you co-op, right? So I think I don't know. It's tough with that because there are other areas in, you know, I guess if they wanted it to be more like kind of MMO-like in a sense, you would see other people when you go in like Ice Lake, or if you go in like, you know, the sewers, right? And you just see other people in the overworld. Like that could have been something they definitely could have did. But I guess again, it would be really laggy. I mean, look at like this area. If you guys are ever in this like hub area, you know it's laggy, right? So yeah, I mean, again, like I don't know exactly what they were going for with this, but they just wanted more of like a, you know, place to kind of flex, I guess. That's what the way I see it personally. It's like, okay, if you have a bunch of really cool stuff, you go in the hub area, you just kind of chill. It's like, you know, the stuff you do in MMOs, right? It's just flex.
So other players to be seen, you shouldn't limit it to this small zone with no obvious boundaries. The world would be far more alive if you could see players everywhere. I thought that was kind of the point of like an open world zone. You also can't really do much with other players in this mode yet, so it feels half-baked, even though it's a great concept. If we look at the microtransaction shop, I'm going to be totally honest. There's not enough to buy, which is crazy, right?
Which is crazy, right? Like the fact that like we were saying there's not enough to buy is crazy. Okay, because if a game doesn't have enough to buy, then like, bro, it's one of those things where people want to spend, but we don't know, like we don't have anything that's like worth, in a sense, spending money on. So I think again, 1.1 for the devs or the Huaxu version, guys, has to be something where the devs actually do, you know, a lot of stuff for, you know, overall for the game. Like 100%, man. Like they're gonna have to do a bunch of new packs, a bunch of new cosmetics, a bunch of things to actually incentivize people to go in the shop and be like, okay, I actually want to buy this to kind of speed up either my progression or to just look cool if it's a cosmetic, right? 100%.
But really, if we want to customize our characters, it'll take a lot more than a Christmas Virgin Killer. A lot of players are willing to spend money on things other than the gacha, and they need other options. I also wouldn't have a problem with cool cosmetics being earnable in game too, but I've resigned myself to that not being a thing in most free-to-play games. In the midst of all of these downsides of the game, I do think that the MTX shop's existence is fine though. The game is completely free to play, and though you can buy characters and weapons to pay to win, it's a a completely solo experience with co-op options. There's no weirdos gatekeeping content against lower level players.
Yeah, so that's the thing with Duet and Abyss, is it's not like an MMO where there's like rankings and leaderboards and stuff. It isn't even like that.
Buy characters and weapons to pay to win. It's a completely solo experience with co-op options. There's no
Yeah, so the thing is with Duet and Abyss, guys, is it's not an MMO, right? It like, the thing is, it feels like an MMO-like experience. Again, like, Warframe is an MMO-like, in my opinion, right? Where, like, you know, in this type of game, there's no leaderboards, there's no rankings, nothing like that. So it's not like you really have to pay to, like, you know, beat something better than another person, because it's all like solo, I guess, like end game content in that point of view, right? And again, you can play co-op with other people, but it's not like you get more rewards doing co-op versus not, which is why I think it's a situation like that right now where, you know, people feel like they have nothing to spend, you know, on, or even to progress more, like, or buying characters and stuff, right?
weirdos gatekeeping content against lower level players and non-spenders, because everything can be earned. And even if somebody spends $1,000 to get everything in the game, so what? It doesn't affect you at all. If this were an MMO like Tower of Fantasy or Star Resonance, it'd be problematic, but it's not. And what's the benefit of spending? You don't have to play the game? Okay, then just don't play the game. Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent, but for some reason, MMO players need to be explained to why pay-for-power MTX shops are fine in single-player games, but not the multiplayer ones. As for farming missions, the missions all drop different materials and barely ever cross over each other. Some materials, like Luno coins, are required far too much to be locked behind a defense mission, and one other content that people only do like 3 times a week. Make them drop sparingly from other missions too. Make it a passive gain, or make it drop from specific enemies. I think this system is a result of them switching from the gacha model, and if they had more time, I really feel like this would have been fleshed out more to not have specific drops be so exclusive to each individual mission.
I honestly completely agree with that. I think, again, we mentioned it in the feedback video, guys, but I think a lot of the things that Brax is saying is just stuff that is like the devs need to address, you know what I mean? Like, normal drops should have maybe a little bit of Carmine Globule, maybe a little bit of gold, maybe a little bit of you know, things like that, because in Warframe, when you kill regular enemies, you drop anything pretty much in the loot table, right? And you can get like the Carmine Globule equivalent. You get Endo in that game, right? You get, you know, gold in that game, or whatever the money currency is, the credits in that game, right? Yeah, in Duet and Abyss, I feel like right now, and especially with like Luno Memento coins, that's another kind of system they have as well. We don't have like ways other than defense and chase to farm Luno Memento coins while we're doing something else. Like, there's not many other, you know, multiple grind like modes in the game, I guess, in a sense, or like characters that, or enemies that drop it, in a sense, I guess, is the way to put it too. But yeah, I mean, again, like, I don't know.
If we look at the amount of content in the game, there's a lot, but there's not a lot of challenging content. The content that you can play is more or less like Warframes, but with fewer tile sets, and the missions are faster on average.
You guys know my opinion on challenging content on this game.
There's an endgame floor climb and a roguelike, so 2 endgame modes, but both of them are exceptionally easy. With the roguelikes,
I would say Mystic Maze isn't even endgame, personally, because it's one of those things where it's just a weekly reset, you do it, right? It's not even an endgame, because yeah, you can make it really hard, but it's not hard. Like Mystic Maze is not really like a hard mode, because it's not based on your demon wedges, and it's only based on your character and the dupes. That's literally it. So like, if you have like an i6 Knifeful, it's the same as my i6 Knifeful. Nothing changes, right? And again, like, that's why I would say Mystic Maze right there is not really endgame. But like Immersive Theater, yes, that one is, because you know, it's a set, you know, drop you get, and you can only do it once per like set or like reset, right? So there's that.
Difficulty just being really low, even with full multipliers, and the floor climb just being DPS checks without real mechanics. A lot of people don't want to give MTash credit, but he was right. Enemies in this game barely do any damage to you, and they don't do a ton of damage to you in Warframe either, for comparison's sake, at least in most missions. But I could go AFK in most missions in Duet Night Abyss for minutes at a time and not go down, which is crazy to me. Now, in
again, like, I'm giving you guys my opinion on why I think Duet and Abyss won't feel difficult, because it's like giving characters in a gacha game at max dupe, max perfect builds, and you just give it to a player. What's gonna happen? Everything gets deleted, right? So I don't know. Again, it's guys, it's a tough thing with balancing like that in games like this. In Warframe, the way they have it is if you want to challenge yourself, you do level cap content, you do level cap Void Cascader, you do level cap, Void Relics. I don't know exactly what like other people are doing nowadays, but yeah, like level cap is the only time it's hard because you die in level cap, not because you can't do enough damage, but because you have survivability issues. Whereas in Duet and Abyss right now, it's really just damage checks, and there isn't really anything that we're just insta dying. So I guess there is that. At the very least, I could say Duet and Abyss could make enemies hit harder for sure, but I don't know if we're ever gonna get like hard content at that point that I think Brax is kind of mentioning here, which is the unfortunate circumstance of a game like this. And again, it's the same with Warframe. There's nothing hard enough that you need, like, again, like if you have the best weapons in the game, you're clearing instantly. Like there's no issues, and especially when you have all your things modded correctly, right? So again, I don't know, guys. I don't know. That's just my opinion on
gacha games. There's a pressure to make endgame fights not have mechanics that punish you for poor execution, because if they do that, then people won't have an incentive to spend. The higher skill expression takes you, the less money people will spend to skip skill expression. But since this game isn't a gacha, it has the opportunity to add bosses with mechanics that are actually punishing to the point of a wipe, because the game is all about your investment and skill and not about the money you spend. More content in general would be great, and more challenging content.
I do agree to an extent, but again, we have to understand that we're literally talking about a game that has set stats on your builds and max dupe on all your characters at a point, right? So when you're at that point and you have max perfect stuff, everything is just going to be inherently easy, unless the devs actually like gate it to i6 Nifle on every like end game stage. But then it's not fair because you can't use any character you want to use, right? And I feel like that's the plus of Duet and Abyss is you have the option to pretty much use any character you want, unless it's Randy, and still do well. And yeah, I think like it's one of those things, guys, where right now I just don't think we're gonna have hard enough endgame content that people are expecting, right? And it's a sad reality, but that's the thing with Warframe, though. The only way Warframe made their endgame hard was by making it so you have a set loadout. They lock you into a certain loadout. Imagine they locked me into using Randy only on the immersive theater. I'm cooked. That's just going to be super hard, right? So that's like their way of, gating it to, make things a little bit more difficult. And again, it's random on Warframe 2 for their Deep Archimedia. So I don't know, man. I don't know, guys. Like, it's a tough subject, but like, do you want to have endgame content be i6 perfect gold wedges like as the hardest thing in the game with actual rewards, so that people that aren't even at that point won't be able to clear, versus you having lower gear and being able to clear some of the end game, which is more attainable for people that don't play super heavy or play the game a good amount. Because on Warframe you can have a good enough build and you can clear all content in the game, right? And I feel like if that's the same with Duet and Abyss, then that's completely fine too, right? Again, there is going to be people that want to have challenging content and they can do that, but it's a situation where, like, if they lock it behind i6 Nifle, then you have to use i6 Nifle. There's no other, like, what other character is going to be at that DPS level of an i6 Nifle with perfect, like, demon wedges? You know what I mean? Maybe Psyche, maybe Lyn, and that's about it, right? And again, if they're going to do it by elements on their immersive theater, that's going to be another thing to take into account too. So again, guys, that's just my take.
Co-op and single-player raid bosses with raid mechanics would really elevate this
Raids,
game
for
to be
sure.
far more than it currently
100%.
is.
Raids and other co-op.
So at this point in the video, you may have noticed a theme, but if I haven't made it clear enough yet, this is it. Duet Night Abyss feels as though it released in an unfinished state. It didn't have enough time to carve its own identity as a unique game, and a lot of its systems are functional and good, but could be far better if they had taken more time. And let's be honest, in 2025, if a game releases that's not better in one aspect than every other game on the market, it's seen as complete garbage. There is very little nuance to people's opinions online. The game is either exceptionally good or it is dog shit, and there is no in between. And the fact that it feels unfinished, coupled with being a mobile-focused game, definitely held it back a lot. And even that wasn't well optimized. The mobile version had so many issues. In my opinion, if you're a game developer, it is really important to make the game at its maximum potential. You should never bring a game's development down to the mobile level. You should aim to bring mobile's development up to the other platforms.
100%.
That's what allows a game
just like the way Warframe did it. Warframe was a PC console game first, then now they're doing mobile with Android and iOS, right? So
room to grow, and I can't help but wonder if Duet Night Abyss should have been a console and PC release instead of a mobile release. I'm sorry, mobile players, that's just kind of how I feel. But that's a bit of a tangent though. After seeing the Duet Night Abyss version 1.1 teaser, I really think that 1.1 was meant to be the real release of the game, but they had to push the game out sooner for some reason. I mean, have you seen what's been cooking? It looks like an entire graphical overhaul and a whole new region with 5 new characters. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the version they wanted to release, but they just couldn't get it done in time. But I actually have a lot of faith in Duet Night Abyss for that exact reason. There's more issues than I listed in this video, but all of the ones that I listed are fixable with development time, even though many of those have been strongly inspired by other games, if I can even use the word inspired here. Duet Night Abyss is very clearly inspired by a ton of other games, but that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you need a blueprint to make the next big thing. I mean, look at Genshin Impact. That game was largely inspired by Breath of the Wild and also took cutscene and ability inspiration from other games and media. But despite that, with time, it very much developed its own unique identity to the point where it's not even comparable to Breath of the Wild outside of the run-around open chest part. Many games out of China do blatantly rip off of other games, but if the games survive, they usually can carve out their own identity. The bones of Duet Night Abyss are very solid. They just need more time to realize their full potential. Much like Cyberpunk 2077 and Wuthering Waves, which many people swore were terrible games until some systems were fixed and optimizations were made. Most MMO releases have been like this too, where the game lacks content or has unpolished systems, and over time they get better. Hell, FF14 had an entire remake of the game before it became what people knew and loved. And though I've been super critical of Duet Night Abyss in this video, there are some things that it does exceptionally well, though some folks online would rather die than admit it. The story of Duet Night Abyss, though it's slow at the start, is very compelling. Act 2 and Act 3 in particular.
Story in Duet Night Abyss, best live service anime launch story I think we've ever gotten. Like, I don't know if that's a hot take. Let me know what you guys think, but yeah.
Are done incredibly well, with Act 2 reminding me of a lot of different Final Fantasy stories. Act 3 is its own self-contained opera tragedy, and it's got some amazing twists and turns, with a closing number that I put on my YouTube music playlist right away. Oh, and the music in Duet Night Abyss is phenomenal. It's a genuine work of art. You can tell that a lot of heart and soul was put into the soundtrack for this game, and as a musician, it gives me a ton of faith in Pan Studio. After all, any game studio that cares enough to curate the music to this level, to the point where even people who hate the game agree it's outstanding, to the point where even classically trained musicians are obsessed with it, has to care about making an amazing game. Looking at social media, the devs are quick to respond about bugs, patches, and improving the game. A lot of folks like to compare the Duet Night Abyss of today to the Warframe of today, and it's just not a fair comparison. I think that we should hold new games to higher standards than older games, don't get me wrong, but Warframe has had over 10 years of live service development to add new content, polish the
super, like, 100%, man. Like, completely right. Like, Rags is all right on that. Like, bro, Warframe was only even, like, good in people's minds after, like, what, like 2017 when Plains of Eidolon dropped? That's when I started the game. That's when I was like, okay, I actually feel like I can dive into this game and enjoy it. Before that, it was just like, I don't know. It's one of those things, guys, where, like, games are going to progressively get better if the devs care and actually work on them, you know, over time. And Digital Extremes for Warframe have been really, really good with that game. They do, you know, so I do hope that's the same thing with Pan Studio Hero Games and
the game and make it the great version it is today. I was there at Warframe's launch. The game was hollow and it crashed every 30 seconds. Duet Night Abyss feels unfinished too, but should the developers continue to care about the game, I can see Duet Night Abyss improving massively over time, just like Warframe did, just like Wuthering Waves did, and just like so many other games that had rough launches 100%. Did, as long as the studios cared about the game being good. Also, for all the criticisms I've had in this video, it's not like the game is even bad. It's actually quite good. It's a completely free-to-play game that allows you to collect and build characters like a gacha while having the gameplay loop of a more Western game release. It allows players to play how they want on their own time, and in that way, it's far more respectful of players than many newer released games. It's one of the few games I can log on to nowadays and not instantly feel some sort of stress or FOMO on. It's a game that gives you the delayed gratification of spending the time to earn what you want, and then use what you've earned to conquer the game and its
sir,
other
the power
systems,
fantasy,
or
man.
even
The power
flex in
fantasy.
social zones once they expand that bit. I've played for hundreds of hours now, and I've been enjoying the grind, progression, characters, combat, music, and story. Everyone I know that's played Warframe has actually loved Duet Night Abyss, despite the movement and gunplay not feeling as good as Warframe's, because the game is just pretty dang good. But why settle for good when games can be great? Hopefully Duet Night Abyss improves
100%.
over the next few patches, because I think that this game could really shake up the anime gaming space if they just focus on finding their own identity.
I think what it really is, guys, we need 1.1, man. We need the Huangsu version released. That is the one thing right now that I think we just kind of need to happen already. You know what I mean? A lot of people right now have their opinions on the base game of Duet and Abyss, but again, this game is only going to get better, guys. So I think I'll leave it at that. I think Brax has pretty much said everything you needed to say there, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below of this video. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Duet and Abyss should have been great, or do you think it's done a fairly good job for where it is, but it will just get better over time? And you know, I mean, I feel like that's the opinion Brax had at the end of the day too, but it really was. This is just kind of a feedback video in a sense, right? But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, but that's going to be it. I'm going to see you guys on the next one, man. Peace out. Have a good rest of your day, guys. See you later, man.